certainly there's a difference of opinion as to what is the minimum requirement for preservation in Islam.
Right.
There are some scholars who say that all of the variants must be preserved. Okay, and they say therefore the 10 major qira'ahs that we have today, that they must be, all of the variants that the Prophet said must be within those 10. Whereas the early view, which I take, is that actually that's not the case. That in order for preservation to happen, all you only require is one variant.
Right, but what you're talking about here, and I think you summed it up quite well there, is that preservation, not a perfect preservation, because ultimately if it was perfect in the way that we understand it from a scholarly point of view, there would only be one copy.
I'll tell you something, Chris, which I think you're right about. Yeah. Okay. When you do listen to on prima facie value, when you listen to this kind of, when people say that the Quran word for word, letter for letter, it makes it seem as if there's no variance.
Right.
I agree with that, and I think that's a mistake on our behalf, that we didn't clarify that early in the Dawah.
Cool,
it's where people in the past, 20, 30 years ago, didn't explain to the people, because this is known to Islamic historians for 1,400 years. You know, textual criticism, for example, some say that, well, Islam doesn't have textual criticism, but the truth is, it's called naqd al-qira'at, or textual criticism of the qira'at. That was there in the early days of Islam. So people that know this field, okay, they will tell you that actually there was a textual criticism tradition in Islam.
Yeah, I agree that there was. I think largely because the companions differed about what their actual.
No, the issue was not with the companions at all.
But they did differ about it, right?
No. The issue is never. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you. Let me make the argument for you.
Okay. Yeah.
If you look at Sahih Bukhari, for example, you'll find. I'll tell you exactly what you're saying. I'll give you the evidence for it.
Okay.
Abu Darda in Sahih Bukhari, he recites Surah Al-Layl, which is chapter 92 of the Quran. It's recited in the 10 qira'ahs as وَمَا خَلَقَ ذَكَرُ الْأُنْثَى. Yeah? And who created the male and the female? He says, no, I'm going to read that وَالذَّكَرِ وَالْأُنْثَى, and the male and the female. So it's an oath. God has taken an oath. He says, I'm by the male and the female. He says, I'm not going to recite وَمَا خَلَقَ. He said, I heard it from the Prophet as وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنْثَى. Yeah? Now the point is that on this view, you could say that, well, in that case there would seem to be a difference of opinion between the companion and the rest of them.
Right.
But this is where it's solved. For example, the famous hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab and Hisham ibn Hakam. Yeah. Let me finish, please. Okay. Because it's on your point. Please, bro. This is but you have to be patient, please. Just let me say. What I'm saying is that Umar ibn al-Khattab and Hisham ibn Hakam, hadith is very sahih, it's authentic. Sure. That there were Hisham ibn Hakam, who's a companion, he was reciting Surah Al-Furqan, chapter 25 of the Quran. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, as he was being led in the prayer by Hisham ibn Hakam, he said that I heard Hisham ibn Hakam reading the Quran على غير الوجه الذي أقرأنيها رسول الله, on a way that's different to the way the Prophet Muhammad taught me. So he said, I'm not sure if you come across this. Right. Let me finish the hadith. Okay. Let me finish the hadith. So he got angry. He said, I got so angry.
Yeah, I've read this one as well.
Yeah, and so he got angry, and then he waited for him to finish the prayer. He grabbed him.
And he took him to the Prophet Muhammad.
He took him to the Prophet Muhammad. And then the Prophet Muhammad said, هكذا أنزلت or هكذا نزلت. Exactly, it's been revealed this way and this way. So we're showing what? Showing it goes back to the Umda hadith, which, or the main hadith, which is unzil Quran ala sab'ati ahruf. The Quran has been revealed on 7
different
yeah, beautiful.
Different modes.
Great, you're good, mashallah, you're good.
So my question is then, it seems as if the early companions disagreed about what that was.
Yeah, but then the disagreement was resolved by the Prophet.
It wasn't by the Prophet though.
Well,
it was resolved by Uthman ultimately, right?
No, it was resolved by the Prophet, because look, I've just given you an example, we agreed, yeah?
Yeah, I agree on that example.
Yeah,
what
right.
I'm saying to you though, is that even after that, there were still arguments among the early companions who knew Muhammad themselves, who were great reciters of the Quran, and yet they had different understandings about what was Quran and what was not Quran. Then Uthman came along and standardized that Quran in your Sahih Hadith.
So there's a degree of truth in what you're saying.
Okay.
The thing is, that here's the thing.
I appreciate honesty.
Yeah, there's a degree of truth. There was still, so some Sahaba, some companions, like as I said, Abu Darda, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, they would recite how they heard the Quran, which might have been different to the way somebody else heard it. But as I said before, they are saying they heard it that way because it's on this harf, on this variant.
Right, but there you have to explain to me, why were they arguing about something if the Prophet made it clear which is acceptable and which isn't?
Here's the thing. If it was seen as that they are saying something that's other than the Quran, it would have been deemed as kufr, as disbelief in heresy, which it never was. So there was and this is why I say there was the degree of truth. Right. There was an atmosphere of acceptability.
Right. Okay, but we need to remember here. So,
come. Your Muslim people are here. Come and stand in their presence.
La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah.
Do you understand?
What I don't understand though is
Speak to your Muslim people.
La ilaha
Speak to your
illallah.
Muslim people. I am not a Muslim. I am not a Muslim. I am not a Muslim. I am not a Muslim.
Let's take 2 steps back. Take 2 steps back.
Go to Muslim.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
yeah.
Yeah, go to Muslim people.
You liar.
Speak to Muslim
Liar ya
people.
donkey.
Okay.
Liar ya hamar.
Muslim people.
Liar ya hamar.
Speak to Muslim people.
La ilaha illallah.
Why are you not speaking to Muslim people?
Allah.
Eh? Muslims sent you to me.
Muslim God.
Speak to Muslim people.
So,
Speak to Muslim people. Speak to Muslim people. Why are you coming to me? Why are you coming to me?
You liar.
You have your Muslim people.
Liar ya donkey.
Go to them and speak to them. Why are you following me?
How you doing? You okay? Long time, Akhi. Good man. Inshallah. You're right, yeah?
Why are you following me?
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah,
Why don't you follow
go ahead.
Muslim people?
so to me then,
Only go
it
after
seems as if they were
people
arguing
who are not
substantially about what
Muslims.
should have been in the Quran.
Go to
Uthman came
Muslim
and standardized it,
people.
because there's a hadith
Yeah.
that says, and it's Sahih hadith,
Okay.
where it says,
Go to Muslim people and speak to
it says,
them.
"O chief of the believers,
Go to Muslim
save
people and
us,
speak
save
to
this nation
them.
before we combat the
Go to
Christians and the
Muslim
Jews."
people and
Yeah,
speak
Adrik
to them.
Ummatak, yeah. So no, but this is what you that
Muhammad,
hadith
not a donkey.
that you mentioned was not
Muhammad
about
is
the
a
companions
donkey.
fighting within themselves.
Evil man.
That hadith that you mentioned was that they said to Uthman, Adrik Ummatak. He said that catch your ummah, yeah, or the Muslim people, because they can either be like the Jews and the Christians. So it wasn't like basically the companions.
Allah the pedophile.
They had a hierarchy.
Why don't you go to Muslim people and talk to them and tell Muhammad the bewitched man, the bewitched Muhammad, the madman of Muhammad. How was Muhammad bewitched? Go and read Quran chapter 113 of the Quran. It tells you there how Muhammad became a mad, bewitched man. Quran says Muhammad was a bewitched man. Chapter 25, verse 8. Chapter 17, verse 47. Muhammad, the bewitched madman. Why are you following a madman? Go to the Muslim people. Why do you come to me? They send you to come to me. Go to Muslim people and talk to me.
All right, yeah.
So, my question is then, if, say for example, Ubay ibn Ka'b had 116 surahs.
No, but he didn't. Like I said, he didn't. That's not an opinion that he kept, and that's not. There's
Yeah,
no
but
good.
yeah, but at one point he did though.
No,
until
there's no evidence.
was reached.
There's no evidence of that. He had two. Basically,
There's a hadith where he complains that he has learned how to recite. He has memorized 70 surahs of the Quran. And
no,
he's
I
complaining
know.
They don't take
I know.
all of what he says.
No, there's no evidence. There's no clear evidence that he took 115, 116 as the Quran. Yeah, these were just two du'ats that he put. Du'a al-Qunut, it's called. He put them in his mushaf at the end.
So he was considering Quran, and there were differences about whether or not that should be
The
Quran.
issue
or
is,
it should be Quran.
here's the issue, right? With the companions' masahif, for example, they would write on it. So they would put their notes on it. They were not meant to be the official standard copy. The official standard copy of the Quran was the one that was collated by Uthman. Otherwise, if everyone of their personal copies was meant to...
wait, but this came before Uthman. Uthman took their copies along with Zayd ibn Ka'b, his copy,
True.
And then he collated with other materials.
No, but the first one was at the time of Abu Bakr. So,
Abu Bakr, 634.
Yeah.
And they did that because
Good,
they were...
Mashallah, you have some...
Yeah,
you go, that's okay.
What I'm saying though is that the first time it was written down in Abu Bakr's copy,
Yes.
they feared, and this is again in Sahih Hadith, they feared the parts of the Quran could be lost.
Say again?
The parts of the Quran could be lost. Yeah, you're aware of that?
Say again, sorry?
The parts of the Quran could be lost.
At the time of Abu Bakr.
Abu Bakr, yeah.
Yeah, but at the time of Abu Bakr, it wasn't. I mean, they weren't really concerned, they're hyper-fixated about the Quran as a physical copy because there were so many hafaz. People have memorized the Quran in droves.
There was a fear that that word you used. Sorry,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about 684.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what you're talking about is that when Umar ibn Khattab and Abu Bakr Siddiq were having a conversation, and Umar was on the side, Umar the second caliph, Abu Bakr didn't want to do. He didn't want to even have a book.
That's what I'm talking about,
yeah, that's what he's talking about. Yeah. So Umar said no. He made those arguments.
So what I'm saying is that he made it.
But he also made an argument from the Quran. So the Quran calls itself kitab.
Yeah.
So he says, because what Abu Bakr was afraid of here was less to do with the preservation issue. It was more to do with the fact that he would do something that the Prophet Muhammad didn't do. So Abu Bakr Siddiq, in order to not do, so Umar al-Khattab had to argue textually through the Quran in order to show that actually, that it was legitimate. So he said that the word kitab is used in reference to the Quran.
Right.
And so therefore you can make it into a book.
Right. Okay, but my understanding though is that you're right. He was talking about how. My understanding of that hadith is twofold, but the most important part is that he is saying that the memorizers of the Quran are in fear of dying in battle, and therefore parts of the Quran could be lost. We can go. Do you want me to read the hadith?
No. There was that as well.
Okay.
But
so is it not true that there's a part of, I think it might be Surah 9, it might be some other surah, where there was only one person who remembered it? No. I think there's a hadith where it says that we only got one thing from that one person.
No. There was what you're maybe referring to. I don't know if you're referring to this. You can read out if you have it. But what I'm talking about, basically, at the time of Abu Bakr, when Zayd ibn Thabit was commissioned to go and basically be the head of the collate the Quran and stuff. But also he said that for each verse there had to be 2 witnesses to each verse.
Okay. Sure.
So for each verse there had to be 2 witnesses.
Sure.
So that's why there was one particular verse, because the Prophet had made a specific supplication where Zayd ibn Thabit only took it from one person, but it was understood by everyone else. So basically the Quran as we have it today, you could say that the consensus of the companions on 2 occasions were on it. The first time was at the time of Abu Bakr, and the second time was at the time of Uthman. The reason why it was necessary, the reason why it's important at the time of Uthman, is because Islam had spread to different nations and stuff.
And they were talking about how those further north, and Sham, and
Azerbaijan and these places.
They were talking about those who had their codices there, their recitations were different from what they knew.
So that they said, bring them all, burn them.
Bring them. Yeah, you're familiar with
this?
Yeah,
of course.
So my understanding is that because there was a process of taking Quranic materials, compiling them into Uthmanic copy in the Qurayshi dialect, and then burning all other Quranic materials, there is a clear and recorded and quite honest example of where what once was considered Quran is now not longer Quran.
Which one? Which verse are you talking about?
Okay, so Uthman, when he collected, what was he collecting? Was it Quranic materials?
No, he wasn't collecting. At this point, it was not a matter of collecting. Okay, no, that was at the time of Abu Bakr. The time of Abu Bakr,
I'm talking about Uthman now.
Uthman wasn't collecting parchments and papers.
Abu Bakr was, What I'm saying is, Uthman though, at this time when they were differing about it up north, there would have been codices, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that differed. He would have taken those, and he would have also taken Zayd bin Thabit, that copy as well.
Are you talking about Uthman?
Uthman.
No, he wasn't doing any of that. All he was doing, he got Zayd bin Thabit again.
Yeah, and he got others.
No, he got others, of course. There was a lejna. It was called a lejna. It was a commission.
He got all the different Quranic materials. He then
the Quranic materials
whenever there were differences, he would choose the Qurayshi dialect. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's another issue. Okay, the Qurayshi dialect, yes.
And then whatever else was left that was not in his copy, he burnt.
Okay, you get. In a way, you're right.
Quranic materials.
He burnt.
Yeah, that some people
could have been some part of it. Well, some people.
So that is enough to establish my argument.
You're right. Some people.
The Quran,
but
we understood by Muslims, is not perfectly precise.
No. Here's the thing. The Quran says, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا هُمْ فِي شِقَاقٍ. If they believe in what you guys believe in, then they're on the right path. And if they don't, then they're astray. You guys is their companions, because it's a second person. and it's the primary audience. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, عليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين من بعدي عضوا عليه بالنواجذ. That upon you is to follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided caliphs after me, bite upon it with your molar teeth. And in another hadith he mentioned, okay, whatever. The point is the point is that there's a difference between the companions, okay, who we believe God has given the stamp of approval to in many verses of the Quran.
But they differ though.
No, I'm not saying that. What my argument is that the variance that existed within the variances within the companion circle.
Okay, so there were variances within the companion
yes,
circle.
of course there were. Yeah, those variances were acceptable to the companions.
Okay.
They were acceptable.
But then they argue about it. But I mean, like.
Well, after the Prophet's death.
After the Prophet's death, yeah.
Okay, look.
In 652, at the
So
time of
when you say when they argued about it, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, I get the hadith.
No. Do you mean when you say argue by it?
Yeah, they say, was it? Save the nation, lest we.
Adrik ummatak. No, that's not the companions. So that's what you're talking here. Is not the companions arguing with themselves. This is Uthman being told that. This is Uthman being told that because Islam has spread. Yeah. These guys who have newly become Muslim, just learned the Arabic language, Persia, this place, that place, they're reading in a certain way, so quickly before they start reading it wrong and it spreads wrong, bring all of their codices, burn it, and just have one standardized version.
Right. So they were saying things that were substantially different enough to bicker about.
Those people that newly converted to Islam, of course.
Well, we already know that Ubay ibn Ka'b and Abdullah ibn so their
but
codices
we mentioned. Sorry.
They were from
but they were.
I think Ubay ibn Ka'b may have been from Kufa. I think.
No. These guys were all at the time of the Prophet. They were companions.
Yeah, those guys were.
No. But I think we need to kind of get this right?
Okay.
What I'm saying to you is, yes, the companions. One companion sometimes had a word. For example, Malik and Malik, owner and king, whatever, which was different to another companion.
Okay, well that's the Qira'ah. Yeah, that's
what but that's where it comes from.
Well, no, because I'm talking about the haruf. Because
No. I'm saying is the ahruf inform the qira'at.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the haruf, I think they disagreed with.
Say again?
The haruf,
ahruf, that's fine. Yeah.
I think they disagreed with.
What? Who?
Because they had different codices for different surahs.
No. The point you're making about different surahs, the numbers of the surahs. The two examples you've given, as I've said, they were reversed. So they're no longer examples.
They changed their mind.
The better example, I'll make your argument for you. The better example is on select words.
Okay.
So for example, I've just given you an example of in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. Yeah. Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Abu Darda, where he recites it differently. I'm saying that he heard it from the Prophet differently to the way someone else heard it, but because that's where the Prophet had it two ways.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that hadith. I've read the hadith.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that yes, I think that there was 7 ahruf, but they differed on what that was enough so that Uthman had to come in and standardize the Quran. That's what I'm saying.
The differences on the ahruf didn't really emerge until after the companions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were they arguing about in the time of Uthman?
No, they weren't arguing. The companions were not arguing about
this.
Let's
save us before we become like.
No, adrik ummatak. This hadith, save your ummah.
Yeah.
Adrik ummatak. Save your ummah before they become like the Jews and the Christians. قبل أن يختلفوا اختلاف اليهود والنصارى.
That was for Uthman to go and collect.
He's talking about the new Muslims that have come to Islam. They've just learned Arabic. They were reciting it wrong.
Wait, but the question is which is correct, and that was what
That's
Uthman
wrong.
was trying to establish.
No.
He took all the different
I understand.
And then he was saying, "Is this correct? Is this correct?"
Chris.
Yeah.
Here's the issue.
Okay.
Those new guys that come into Islam, did they meet the Prophet?
I don't think that's necessarily what that's referring to.
No, it definitely was.
I think that's referring to Ubay ibn Ka'b's code.
No way.
Well, it would make sense, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't, because
definitely
not.
But they have different levels of surahs.
No, let me tell you why.